What if a man who could barely move his body became the person who helped humanity better understand the universe? Imagine being told at just 21 years old that you had only 2 years left to live. Most people would give up. Most people would lose hope. But one young man refused to let his illness decide his future. As his body became weaker, his mind became stronger. He couldn't travel to distant galaxies. So he explored them with the power of imagination, mathematics, and endless curiosity. His ideas changed modern physics. His books inspired millions. His life proved that the greatest strength doesn't come from muscles, it comes from the human mind. This is the incredible true story of Stephen Hawking, the scientist who looked beyond the stars and showed the world that no obstacle is greater than determination. Stay until the end, because Hawking's final message may completely change the way you think about your own life. A curious boy who loved asking why. Stephen William Hawking was born on January 8, 1942, in Oxford, England. Interestingly, he was born exactly 300 years after the death of Galileo Galilei, another scientist who changed the way people understood the universe. Stephen grew up in a family that loved learning. Books filled every room. Conversations often revolved around science, history, and ideas. From an early age, Stephen showed endless curiosity. He wanted to know why the sky was blue, why the stars shined, why time moved only forward. He didn't simply memorize answers. He questioned everything. Friends later remembered that Stephen enjoyed taking apart clocks and radios not because he wanted to break them, but because he wanted to understand how they worked. His curiosity wasn't limited to machines. He was fascinated by the biggest mystery of all. How does the universe work? A student who thought differently. Stephen attended school like other children. Surprisingly, he wasn't always the top student. His handwriting was messy. He wasn't known for studying all night. Instead, he relied on deep understanding. He loved solving difficult problems in creative ways. His classmates nicknamed him Einstein. Not because he had already become famous, but because they recognized his extraordinary intelligence. After finishing school, Stephen entered Oxford University. His father hoped he would study medicine. Stephen chose physics instead. He wanted to understand the laws that governed the entire universe. During his years at Oxford, he enjoyed rowing, making friends, and challenging himself with complex scientific questions. His future looked bright. No one imagined how suddenly everything would change. The diagnosis that changed everything. When Stephen was 21 years old, he began noticing something strange. He stumbled while walking. He dropped objects from his hands. His speech sometimes became unclear. Doctors performed many tests. Finally, they delivered heartbreaking news. Stephen had ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as motor neuron disease. The illness would slowly destroy the nerves controlling his muscles. Doctors believed he had only about 2 years to live. For a young man filled with dreams, the diagnosis felt devastating. Stephen fell into depression. He wondered whether continuing his studies even mattered. If life was ending so soon, why keep trying? But something unexpected happened. He met a young woman named Jane Wilde. Her optimism gave him hope. She believed in him. Slowly, Stephen realized something powerful. He couldn't control his illness. But he could control what he did with the time he had. That decision changed history. Choosing hope over fear. Instead of giving up, Stephen returned to his research. He focused on one of the greatest mysteries in physics: black holes. At that time, scientists knew very little about them. Many believed black holes simply swallowed everything forever. Stephen wasn't satisfied with assumptions. He wanted answers. Using mathematics, imagination, and determination, he explored ideas that no one had imagined before. As his body weakened, his scientific reputation grew stronger. His illness slowed his movements. It never slowed his thoughts. A brilliant discovery. Working with other physicists, Stephen made revolutionary discoveries about black holes. He proposed something astonishing. Black holes weren't completely black. They could slowly release tiny amounts of energy. This became known as Hawking radiation. The idea surprised scientists around the world. It connected gravity, quantum physics, and thermodynamics in completely new ways. Even today, Hawking radiation remains one of the most important ideas in theoretical physics. Stephen had shown that curiosity could reach places no spacecraft had ever traveled. Losing his voice but finding another. As the years passed, Stephen's illness progressed. He gradually lost the ability to walk. Then he needed a wheelchair. Later, after a serious illness, he lost his natural voice. For many people, losing the ability to speak would end public life. Not for Stephen. Engineers created a computer system that allowed him to communicate using a speech synthesizer. With a small movement of his cheek, he selected letters and formed sentences. His electronic voice became one of the most recognizable voices in the world. Ironically, the voice created by technology became a symbol of hope for millions. A book that reached the world. In 1988, Stephen published A Brief History of Time. He wanted ordinary people, not just scientists, to understand the universe. The book explored questions everyone wonders about. How did the universe begin? Will it ever end? What is time? Can we travel through it? The book became an international bestseller. Millions of readers who had never studied physics became fascinated by space and science. Stephen proved that complicated ideas could inspire everyone. Knowledge belonged to all humanity. Becoming a global inspiration. Stephen Hawking wasn't only admired by scientists. People around the world admired his courage. He appeared in documentaries, television shows, and interviews. He even made memorable appearances in popular programs like The Simpsons, Star Trek, and The Big Bang Theory, introducing science to new audiences with humor and wit. He never wanted sympathy. He wanted people to stay curious. Whenever audiences applauded him, they weren't only celebrating a scientist. They were celebrating the triumph of determination. Dreaming beyond Earth. Stephen believed humanity should continue exploring space. He argued that one day humans would need to live on other planets to ensure the survival of civilization. He encouraged investment in science, technology, and education. He believed curiosity was one of humanity's greatest strengths. For Stephen, looking toward the stars wasn't about escaping Earth. It was about expanding human potential. Living beyond expectations. Remember the doctors who predicted Stephen had only 2 years to live? They were wrong. Instead of 2 years, Stephen lived for more than 5 decades after his diagnosis. During that time, he earned worldwide recognition, received countless awards, taught generations of students, wrote best-selling books, and inspired millions. His body continued facing enormous challenges. His mind never stopped exploring. The final years. Even in later life, Stephen remained active. He traveled, delivered lectures, worked with scientists, encouraged young people to study science. He continued asking new questions until the very end. On March 14, 2018, the birthday of Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking passed away at the age of 76. Scientists, students, world leaders, and ordinary people mourned his loss. Yet his ideas continue traveling through classrooms, observatories, and imaginations across the globe. A legacy written among the stars. Stephen Hawking changed more than physics. He changed how people viewed disability. He proved that physical limitations do not define human potential. He reminded the world that imagination has no wheelchair. Curiosity has no boundaries. Hope has no limits. His discoveries continue inspiring scientists exploring black holes, the Big Bang, and the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. Every telescope pointed toward distant galaxies carries part of his dream. The final lesson. Stephen Hawking once said, "Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet." Those words summarize his extraordinary life. He faced challenges that seemed impossible. He lost movement. He lost his voice. But he never lost wonder. He never stopped asking questions. He never stopped believing that knowledge could improve humanity. His story reminds us that success isn't measured by how easy life is. It's measured by how courageously we face difficulties. The universe is vast, filled with mysteries waiting to be discovered. Stephen Hawking spent his life exploring those mysteries. Now it's our turn to remain curious. To keep learning. To keep asking questions. Because every great discovery begins with a single thought. And perhaps, the next mind that changes the universe could be yours. The end.